quest for the truth or the legality of the income taxes. What he found in his search started him on a path of learning the law, or law. He has studied law for 10 years, nearly full time. Judges, public defenders, prosecutors have complimented him on his legal arguments and court paperwork. Please welcome Barry Money.
So, there's a little orange and white paper on the tables on both sides that has my contact information. I've got a web page on here. I've got an email list called Tips and Tricks for going in and out of court. You can subscribe to that and just start getting an ongoing stream of things that will help educate you about, how to deal with, court and law and type of things. Also on here, there's a web page for Linda Sanders. I understand she's spoken here before, and she's gone to the trouble of writing down everything that's transpired in her life. It might make interesting reading. As for me, I had a number of visions and revelations that I want to recount to you tonight. One of the most startling ones for a nice law-abiding guy like me was that the Father says to me, when I refer to that, I'm talking about Yahweh or God, and he says to me, get ready because you're going to jail. And so I started studying, and sure enough, like a year later, I ended up in the Jefferson County jail. I was there for 20 days. I hammered him in about 15 days. I hammered him with 240 administrative demands related to prison rights. Had a real supernatural time. At one point, 2 lieutenants came and they said, it's become really apparent that you intend to sue us, and we wanted to give you the card for our attorney to facilitate communication, and that was William Tuthill. Maybe you've heard his name from the county attorney here. And then, without getting into that complete jail story, which is pretty hilarious, at one point, David Burley, who is kind of like my mentor or whatever, he's the first one who ever took me and walked me through the law library. He says he was in City and County of Denver, and he was defending a no proof of insurance ticket, and he was just paranoid. This guy really studied his issue and was making him look pretty bad in court. And they took a recess. And during the recess, he sat down next to an attorney. I was there, and the attorney leans over to him and he says, were you the guy that was on the Chaco? And David says, no. He says, that's him right there. I says, I taught him. And the attorney goes, man, he says, they're scared to death. And then later, he took someone to help them file an appeal, and they went into the Jefferson District Court, which I had never been there. The reason I was in jail for 20 days was a little Lakewood Municipal Court matter of failing to yield while making a left-hand turn or something. And they stacked it in some other charges that was put me in jail, or at least left me in jail. My bond was $500, but I purposely didn't post it because I wanted to stay there and read all these demands and make your life miserable. Anyway, so he goes walking into the district court with this friend of his in tow. They're going to file an appeal, and he says, we've got this sort of unusual appeal to file. And the clerk says, are you Barry Smith? He goes, no, why? He goes, because he's going to sue the county. Only one of us is supposed to file. And we thought that was kind of fun. And then later, I ended up clear out in Sterling, Colorado. I had this whole scheme set up to test the state patrol, and I ended up being jailed in Logan County. And so at one point after I had my initial appearance in court, my mom went in to see the sheriff. And the sheriff told my mom, he really gave them a hard time in Jefferson County. And so my reputation has kind of gone out. And so one of the things that happened was my wife and I, at the time I was married, and we were Bible-believing Christians, Bible wizards, I guess you could say. And we were listening to Gary Smalley and John Trent, and they had like marriage counseling books that they wrote and so forth. And one of the things that they said in their videos and their seminar is that men, pay attention to your wife. God's given you your wife because she is supposed to help you hear from the Spirit, and you should pay attention to what she says because she's on something. She can help you with things that you can't do. And so we had been involved in filing our returns, and each year we get to the end of the year, we'd still, even though we optimized our deductions, we'd owe like a couple $1,000. We wouldn't have the money, so we had payment plans stacked on top of payment plans, probably 3 years worth. And each year we're still paying on, 3 years ago. And she starts saying this. She starts saying, if only we didn't have to pay the IRS. If only we didn't have to pay the IRS. And she shouts. I don't know how many times she said that. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. You're supposed to listen to your wife. Why is she saying that? And I've been pretty much a racist leader. And so I didn't know what else to do. So I just went down to the Denver Library and I just checked out like 10 books on the IRS. You do a little subject search, it sends you to a shelf, and there's nothing but IRS books there. And I read like those 10 books. I'm a pretty fast reader, so I found through them. And I found stuff in there like former IRS agents that were saying that the way they determine a deficiency assessment is by throwing a dart at a dartboard. And go, oh, that person owes 10, or whatever. And I mean, I saw several of those books were just full of just nonsense like that, where they were just admitting what went on. And then I got to Irwin Schiff, and Irwin Schiff said, look, the Constitution provides for import and export taxes and excise taxes. And then it provides for indirect and direct taxes. And he was explaining the constitutional provisions for taxation. And any kind of tax that would be imposed on a state citizen constitutionally, it was supposed to be by apportionment. And so they'd go to the state and say, look, Colorado, you got 250 million, or you got 2.5 million people there, so your portion of the tax bill is X, and you have until this month to collect that money from the people in your state and send it in. And it's up to you how you do it. You got to pay our bill. Well, I don't know if you know this, but it was up until about the 1900s that they had tax excesses just from the constitutionally provided provisions, and they didn't even have to do any kind of apportionment to the states. And in fact, I saw a little comic that was drawn up, and in there it said that it showed the government with this huge money bag, and it had all this surplus funds that they didn't know what to do with. And at the time, there wasn't any tax. And so